26? 26?
Yeah, episode 26.
That's awesome, man.
Dude, we're halfway to 50.
That's crazy.
That's fucking nuts.
That's pretty crazy, man. Today we're going to be talking about validation. Validation. First,
we're going to be talking about what you came here for and what we are hoping you get out of this video.
Before we start talking about that, how was your day today, man? How were you doing?
It's going pretty good. I was just elaborating for Nick before the podcast about how I'm starting to understand the importance of me just experiencing life and not trying to slam the square peg into the round hole 24 hours out of the day. Because, I just went from a drug addict to an alcoholic to a workaholic. And, I'm just starting... My biggest realization of the last couple of days was just that, I'm starting to understand that by letting myself just experience life and have fun and have enjoyable experiences, it's more valuable to other people than I think it is. And that's what makes it worth it to me. That's what makes life worth it to me, is that I get to share it with other people.
Right.
If I just had to sit in a little room and experience all the great things, I don't know about all that.
That's the same way how I feel about knowledge in general. I was just reading Seneca, and he was talking about the same thing as well. He's like, I don't care if I had all the knowledge in the world if I have no one to share it with.
Yeah, dude. That's exactly, and that was my realization about experiences. It is, I thought that the things that I experienced were only for me. And so I was like, well, they're useless then. I should just work to add more to society. But the second I realized that my experiences are so much more useful to everyone around me because I share them and it changes my character in the situations that I bring those experiences to, I'm like, bro, they're way valuable.
Yeah, they enhance your character, and your character is what you use to act in the world.
Right.
Yeah, so you've discovered a little bit of balance, and I'm proud of that. I've been telling this guy he needs to be a little bit more balanced for a while. But yeah, it's really cool.
No, it's awesome, bro. I feel good. I only worked for 2 hours today. And I slammed the computer down. I said, we're done. I need some chocolate and a burger.
That's what's up, dude.
How you doing?
Not a great day today. I got kicked out of the gym because I'm wearing fucking chinos, and apparently I'm not allowed to work out in chinos at San Jose State Gym. So I'm kind of peeved about that. When you miss a workout, it's just your day gets totally off. So,
yeah.
But other than that,
we should protest.
Yeah, you should be allowed to wear chinos in the gym. Anyways, it is what it is. I'm just going to have to hit a home workout later tonight, make up for it.
He's going to be on that Bulgarian split squat height.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just going to be taking my anger out on those split squats for sure.
All right, so on the topic of validation, I'll start it off just my experience with receiving validation and how I've received it in an unhealthy way and how I feel like I've kind of matured to not use it in an unhealthy way. So validation comes from everywhere. I'm pretty sure we touched on it when we talked about social media. Yeah. Because that's just a validation machine, you know. But I think that all of us walk around every day, and the second we get any idea that somebody else is thinking about us, that's pretty validating. Yeah. That makes me feel important or loved or cared about, or that just somebody cares about me in some kind of way. Now, here was my problem with validation, for many years, is that I didn't feel good enough about myself. So when other people made me, validated me, it was it brought me from -10 to -2. And I was like, oh, I'm almost there. If I can just get that again, if if the next girl can just call me handsome and say that, she wants to be with me, or if I can just get the pat on the back from my employer, or if, who knows what, if I can get this many likes on social media, then I'll be almost there, I'll almost be good enough. The difference that happened when I became a little bit more of a healthier person and was using validation in a better way is that I feel pretty much good enough every day today. I feel 0. Let's just put 0 as not the lowest out of 10, but just the equal place to be. I'm at 0 most of the time. I feel good enough, whether or not I have this thing or the next thing. And now when I'm validated by something or somebody else, I'm like, it's like a little boost that I can appreciate. I'm like, oh, that feels nice. You know, like I got a compliment or something did well that I was hoping it was going to go well, or something along those lines. So I think that's really kind of the danger with validation, is where it's taking you from.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it could definitely be abused if you don't have a strong sense of internal validation.
Yeah.
I'm sort of developing a different perspective on validation in its entirety.
Hit it.
Like, I'm trying to burn it on both ends, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So when I receive validation, I'm trying to not let it affect me in the same way that I wouldn't let somebody not giving me validation affect me. So that I'm completely neutral to validation, whether I receive it or not.
Right.
Because if you're valuing it when it comes from other people, it's going to be hard to not be upset when you're not receiving it from them.
Right. You can't really have one without the other.
Exactly. And so by getting rid of external sources of validation in their entirety and their effect on you, then you can really cultivate a strong internal sense of being valuable. At least that's what I think. So that's what I'm trying to figure out exactly how to do that, because, I mean, like, to be honest, I do struggle with wanting to be validated by other people, and I think most human beings do, and it's an evolutionary drive as well, and it makes sense. But I'm trying to get rid of it as much as possible.
Do you think that, and I don't know, this was something that just popped in my head like as you were talking, but do you think that, like, there's any con of burning validation at both ends? Like, do you think there's any benefit from letting somebody validate you in some kind of way, or do you think it's always better to just not be affected by the outside world at all? Because I hear Gary Vee talk about this a little bit. He was like, he started the conversation off with like, I don't even know who my competitors are. Like, I just don't know, and like whether he was lying or not, who cares? But that's a pretty strong person to be in business, that like he doesn't know who anyone is who's competing against him. He's unaffected by the people who think that they're better, or the people who think that they're worse, or the people that think that he's doing well or not doing well. He's just like, I'm on the straight and narrow, and that's to make myself as stable and my business the best it can be.
I would say that you can appreciate validation, but that you shouldn't allow it to affect your pride. So there's a saying.
What's the difference?
Well, there's a saying by Marcus Aurelius. He says to receive without pride and let go without attachment. And he's referring to everything with that.
Right.
And I think you can include validation in that, where when you receive validation from somebody, you don't allow it to make you prideful, but you might appreciate the fact, hey, this person likes me, that's great. And I think you can appreciate it from a stance of, you've given them a positive experience. The way you affected them is something good.
Yeah.
But not to be like, oh, I'm so great, I'm so high and mighty because this person is validating me and says that I'm valuable.
You know what? I like that, because I've had like DMs before where people like will tell me like, hey, this song means a lot to me. Like, it really, like I really connected with it, or it got me through a hard time, or something like that. And most of the time, and like, I wouldn't say all the time, but most of the time I'm able to look at that and I feel a sense of gratitude that I've given them that experience.
Right.
Like, it doesn't go straight to my head and I'm like, I'm the shit,
That's the difference between appreciating it and then letting it go to your pride. It's a bit harder to do with something where, like, if somebody thinks you're attractive, right? How do you put that in your mind where you've benefited them? But I mean, you have.
Yeah.
They've been able to look at something that they think is nice to look at. That's a positive experience. And so if somebody compliments your physique or your face or whatever it might be, instead of letting it go to your pride and your ego and letting you think more highly of yourself, you can instead just be appreciative of the fact that you've given this other person a positive experience.
Yeah. No, I definitely think so. And it's even harder to cut that out with things that you've worked hard at. Mm-hmm. So like a physique is a perfect example. Anytime I have ever I have never been able to do that with any physical compliment I've ever gotten. It's never happened, ever. Like,
because we're vain.
Yeah, and like because the first thing that goes to my head when somebody's like, oh, like, thinks I'm attractive, or somebody else who works out is like, oh, you look good, like, I'm like, yeah, bitch, I put the work in, like immediately to my head. And so I feel like,
I think you can have that sentiment about yourself, that you're proud of what you've built, but it can't come from other people validating you. So you can be proud of your body, you can be proud of how you look because of the work you put in, but because you're proud of it, not because somebody else finds you attractive. It's not because somebody else validates your work. That makes sense.
Right, that if I can get that same feeling standing in the mirror at home,
Yeah.
then, which sometimes it's like that, but not all the time, you know, like, but if I can get that same feeling, then I'm probably in, like, what I would call a spiritually fit place.
Right.
That's crazy.
And I don't know to what extent it's even possible for us as human beings.
You definitely can't perfect it.
Yeah, but it's just something I've been trying to, like, proactively think about and do, because, you know, for a while I was frustrated that I wasn't being validated enough by other people.
Yeah.
And then as of late, I've been receiving more and more validation from people, but I've been taking a different attitude towards it. Instead of allowing it to make me prideful and think more highly of myself, I'm trying to take the same attitude that I tried to cultivate against not being validated towards it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's interesting.
Because I think that it'll really allow me to just, like, develop that true inner self-confidence where it's unwavering. Your opinion matters to me not at all, not even a little bit.
Well, I think that's like the biggest thing with people, at least myself. When I struggled with validation, it was because I was just sitting at -10. So it's like, even if validation is affecting me, which might not be the most optimal way to, like, live in it, if you're still way better off sitting at a stable place and letting it affect you, like letting it take you to -5 and +5, than if you don't have confidence, don't have a good self-esteem, and then validation feels like the cure.
Yeah.
Like, it's like getting you to a stable place, so now you're just chasing that. Like, and it's so much more, like, attractive and, like, addictive when you're low enough to need it, rather than it just swaying your emotions.
I was sitting on campus the other day and just sort of thinking about this, like, pretty deeply, trying to come up with, like, a good analogy for it. And I did, and I was going to write it out, but I forgot about it. I'm going to try to explain it. If I butcher it, forgive me.
Yeah.
But an analogy I thought of about validation is that it's sort of like traveling in search of a home, in search of a place where you feel comfortable, when you've never cultivated the ability to just appreciate where you are. So everywhere you go, you're going to be uncomfortable. Maybe for a moment you're like, oh, this is it, I found it.
Yeah.
But you've never had that innate ability to just appreciate where you are, so you're like, oh, never mind, I have to find something new.
Yeah.
And so that's similar to validation. You're constantly seeking to be approved of by other people when you've never even approved of yourself first. So it's never going to be enough.
Have you ever heard it? That's a really good way to describe it. Like, I think that makes sense. It reminds me of the saying, or the cliche, that wherever you go, there you are.
Yeah.
You've heard that before.
Yeah.
Like, when you have a problem,
That's
like...
by Seneca, actually, as well.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. But, yeah. No, like, that if you have a problem, you know, whether that's with validation or self-esteem or whatever it is, like, it needs to be addressed from the inside first. Something we say in recovery all the time, like in meetings. People are like, this is an inside job.
Yeah.
Like, it's all, because, you know, people come in with wrecked lives and they're like, you know, the wife kicked me out, the kids are taken away, I got fired from the job, like, how do I get all this stuff back? Like, no, it's an inside job, you know, and, like, it's, validation is so tough because it's like one of those, like, it's like you can be in a bad place and it just feels like the devil is working, you know, because it's such a, like, quick hit of dopamine, and, like, it's so easy to get, especially in our age with social media, you know, like, if I need to feel a little bit better about myself, I'm like, oh, let me go over here, you know.
Going back to my original point, I think it's sometimes funny when people claim that they don't care about the opinions of other people. When people say that, they usually do.
Yeah.
But you can tell pretty obviously, especially when they allow positive opinions to affect them very much.
Yeah.
Because if you're allowing positive opinions to affect you a lot, you're certainly allowing the lack of those positive opinions to affect you too.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for real. Dude, something that I just thought about that's really might be telling about, like, where I'm at with how much I let the outside world affect me is, like, I've been going, absolutely ham on TikTok. Like, I realized the recipe for TikTok is for me to just make fun of woke hippies about psychedelics.
Hey, that'll do it.
And then put my music in the background. So it gets boosted in the algorithm, and everyone that sees the video that likes the music follows me.
Right.
And then it's just riddled with hate comments.
Mm.
And it's like, it's pretty funny, and it was funny at first, but I don't feel insanely distraught by it, but I do notice how it affects me a little bit. I'm like, whoa. Like, I'm able to catch myself pretty fast and just be like, look, it's time for me to just sign off and call somebody else. But I do notice that, like, it does sway me a little bit. I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird. You know, like, I have a couple seconds of second guessing myself or being in my head, but then I also notice it on the other end. Like, shout out to the first random person to ever comment on one of our videos. They said something on the education episode where we were just talking about it being super helpful and, like, keep doing what we're doing. And, like, dude, my heart just went like, ah,
yeah, really cool.
You know? And, like, so I do sit somewhere where those things do affect me, but it's definitely not to the same extent that it would be if I wasn't stable myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
There's this is sort of connected to what you're saying, but I was just thinking while you were speaking, there's two logical sort of arguments that I came up with. I don't know if I came up with it, but that I discovered maybe that sort of have helped me with getting rid or starting to get rid of the desire for validation, or dealing with the lack of it. The first is that people don't know you. They simply don't.
Yeah.
All they know is what you've presented them with, which is pretty limited. Like,
well, we barely know ourselves.
Yeah. So for them to judge you, their judgments are based on very incomplete information.
Right.
So they should pretty much be discounted.
Yeah.
The second is that people have something called reticular activation system. That's selective focus. So even when they are looking at you, they're looking at very particular things about you. And any experience that we're having, this exact experience we're having right now, we're both focusing on different things.
Right.
Just because of our past experiences, our innate personality, just because there's so many things to focus on, there's no way that we're probably going to focus on the exact same thing. So we're going to come away from the same experience with different takeaways. That's the same thing for individuals. When they look at you, then they judge you and they assess you, they're going to come away with different takeaways just based on what they were focusing on in that moment.
Right.
So again, it's just such an incomplete picture of who you are that their judgments are essentially invalid.
Right, positive or negative.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a really, really, really good way to look at it. I think the biggest thing for me, especially with what I'm doing now, is like my personal success in music is basically based on how much I can get people to validate me to some extent, or how much I can validate other people by resonating with their experiences. So I think that's like, yeah, I mean, I know there's like a way to think about it, to just see it as something that needs to get done without like emotionally attaching myself to it. But I think that's a really good way to look at it. It's just like no matter what, people don't really know me.
Mm-hmm.
And they're really only focusing on what they would like to focus on.
Right.
So the way that they think about me is pretty much irrelevant.
Right.
In any way, shape, or form.
You're the most familiar with yourself out of every single human being on the planet. So you're really the only person on planet Earth qualified to judge yourself.
Yeah.
And even then, you don't even really know yourself.
Yeah.
So it
that's shown by like every episode when we discover something new.
So it do be tough, but yeah, to place a high value on the opinions and judgments of other people, I think you can make the rational argument that it's foolish because they don't have enough information to make a good judgment or assessment of you.
Right. The other thing about it, you know, is that it's only going to distract you.
Yeah.
I mean,
not productive.
It only distracts you. You know, it only makes socializing with everyone around you and experiencing life more complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I'm around a bunch of people who like think really highly of me, I'm just on my high horse.
You're going to overlook negative aspects about yourself.
I'm also not appreciating the situation, because I have been in situations where I feel like I'm the one that's like looked at like in the light, and it's like all I'm thinking about is me. If I'm just killing the social setting and just cracking jokes and running it and getting it back and forth, and I'm just living off this validation, I'm not appreciating anyone there.
Right.
I'm just like milking the validation out of them. And same thing goes if I'm like, you know, like if I think I'm way worse than everyone in the room, I could probably learn from everyone there, but I'm just thinking about the lack of validation that I'm getting, like, oh, I'm not appreciated, or I'm in self-pity, or whatever it is.
Yeah, when you're in that mode of killing the social environment, it goes back to the, like we were talking about at the very beginning, is just take it outside of yourself. Like, don't think of it as, oh, I'm killing this social environment.
Yeah.
Think of it as, I'm giving these people positive experiences and that's good for them.
Yeah.
Like, think of it in the way of service, almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, all of life is just about detaching myself. You know? Like, that's one thing that I've just realized.
Separation from ego. Yeah.
Like, the less ego that I have, the less I think about myself, the better off I'm going to be in all settings. You smell that fart?
No.
Damn.
And I'm grateful I'm grateful for that.
Do you have any other thoughts on validation?
No, I mean, we'll see how much I'm able to actually accomplish that. My ability to burn it on both ends. You know, I'm just getting started in the process, and it seems to be working a little bit. Like, I've been feeling a bit more just validated by my own being rather than needing to be seen or appreciated by others.
Well, I think just like everything, it's just something to shoot for.
Yeah, it's a process.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the only reason, like I talk about anything in the most perfect extent. It's because I'm just trying to shoot to be like that.
Mm-hmm.
And if I aim at that, I might get there. It's like, I think we talked about it on another episode, that you should just aim to be a billionaire, because then you might be a millionaire.
Yeah, I think the proper way to judge yourself is to set up an ideal, set up a way that you would like to be, and then measure yourself against that.
Right.
And try to approach that as much as you can over time.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing you should measure yourself against.
I hear it.
That's it for validation.
Yeah, that's all I got. I hope that was helpful.
So please validate us by giving us a like and commenting on the video, maybe subscribing.
Dude, we don't say that any episode. Yeah, so if you'd like to contribute to validating us, you can drop a like, you can leave a comment, you can subscribe, and we're going to be interviewing people on validation next week.
That'll be interesting.
We're not going to walk up to them and ask them if they want to talk about validation, though.
We'll figure out some crafty questions to sort of get them into discussing this sort of thing, and then
we'll just drop it on them.
Yeah. I'm excited. That was good. Good job, man.
Good job. Peace out.